Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Power of Perception Twitter account and the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube audio channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Subscribe, rate, give us an idea for a future audio if you would like to, and we'll take that into account. Just comment below, and that will be extremely helpful to us. In any event, today's topic is just staying in the flow of progression. And progression is so important because to make progress is to give yourself the ability to continue moving forward towards any goal. What are some ways, tips, and abilities as a life coach that I help people to make or to commit to the progress that they are trying to achieve? And one of those things is to be easy on yourself for letting go of the illusion of competition. The illusion of competition says that I should already be somewhere. I should already have the house. I should already have the car. I should already be in the perfect relationship. I should already have the kids. I should already be making X amount of dollars. The illusion of competition gets us in trouble because it takes us away from being present moment minded. It takes us away from being progressive and cripples us with the pain of regret. Regret is one of the most dangerous things for any person to deal with on a day-to-day basis because regret will lead you to doubt that you have the ability, authority, or function to be able to achieve any specific thing that you're setting out to do. Now, that creates its own set of problems, challenges, and issues, not because there's anything wrong with what you do, but because when you are in a regretful state, you lose your mindset, focus, and personal power as it relates to achieving any goal that you've set out for yourself. So the problem with that ultimately becomes a disempowerment mentality that ultimately leads you away from the progress you truly desire to make. Now, the problem with that is that when you're in that mode and it becomes a habit, most patterns of thoughts become habits, first habitually and then consciously. In other words, where we go automatically in our mind is to the pathway or thought way of thinking that is most dominant for us. And if we have been limited in our beliefs or in any way limiting of ourselves in belief, we then create this illusion that we're always going to feel, always going to be, always going to do the same thing or be the same way. Now, the challenge of what to do is to make things manageable, make things chunkable, and chart your progress. Some people chart their progress by getting a coach. That's one of the main benefits of a coach, is to have somebody who's holding you accountable to the goals you've set. Other people choose to have an accountability partner in a religious organization, a family member, a friend, someone who understands where their pitfalls are. Now, this person has to be tempered with support, but not too soft, while able to give you ideas and have the credibility to hold you accountable when you're letting yourself, I don't want to say down, but letting yourself go off path. Another beautiful thing to do in that state where you're trying to stay in the function of progress is to focus on the idea of journaling or finding a way to write down or chart your progress. An audio journal, a video journal, a written journal, all of these are options. Talking things through as it relates to ways to make the progress that you desire is an important thing to do during the digs that you take, ultimately at yourself, because you will have moments where you're doubting your progress. You will have moments where you're doubting your ability to stay in the flow, and that's the other thing too. Inspiration comes from being in the flow state, when everything aligns and you feel like you're capable of making the progress that you desire to make. When you leave the flow state, that is, when you believe that you have somehow failed, you have to be able to have a reference point to look back at in order to continue to make progress. That's where journaling, audio, video, or written is super helpful, because that flow state can be re-entered when you look at yourself differently. Another thing to establish within yourself is permission to celebrate small bits of progress. Now, that celebration can be something as simple as taking yourself out to dinner, going for an extra special walk. If you're an animal person, maybe spending some extra time at a animal sanctuary or special time at a dog park. In other words, whatever lights you up, give yourself rewards along the way so that your focus remains upon that progress and the reward mentality. Now, sometimes people say it's a little too soft when to reward yourself for your own progress, but our mind is built on the concept that a payoff should matter. A payoff should matter because at the end of the day, if I do something and I get something for it, then I can see the cause and effect of the actions I take having to matter, or that they do matter. Now, the challenge becomes, what does one do when what has worked in the past is no longer working? You have to look at the state of mind you were in at the last time that the actions you were trying to accomplish was working. Also, look at who you're surrounding yourself with. Your attitude, your outlook, and your behavioral patterns are influenced by the people you keep around and the energy that these people have within themselves. So here's the challenge. If you're constantly around negative people, even if it is your intention to stay positive or progressive, eventually their mindset and way of viewing the world will bleed over into the way you see the world, because the dominant nature of your energy and your thought patterns is influenced by those you are around most often. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get rid of everybody who you think is, not in the right mindset all the time, every day, but it does mean that it is often necessary to establish within yourself whether or not you feel capable of balancing how you feel or the energy associated with a person before you deal with them on a day-to-day basis. Another thing about progress is look at setting long, short, and mid-range goals. A short-range goal should be set at least on a weekly basis. For some people, it works even better to have daily goals. And then weekly goals, monthly goals, and yearly goals. The more you can chart measurable progress, the more progressive you're going to be. Setting goals that also allow you to be flexible within your mindset is super important. In other words, my goal is to get where I want to be. My goal is to achieve this certain objective. But by getting there, I will have, or I will think, in this manner. In other words, relating what you will get when you accomplish the goal is also super important. When you don't have a meaningful why or a masterful why or something that you are trying to accomplish with a personal connection to it, you are less likely to follow through. When you begin to have a fire within you for what you're capable of accomplishing, that is when you will see the most progressive progress. Now, understand too that you have to build in against your fear points or sticking points. When you begin to have a repetitive thought that is negative or limiting you, or in any way leading you in a direction you do not want to go, rather than try to convince yourself not to feel a certain way, the best thing you can do is to look at yourself and say, okay, what is the latest? What is the reason why I'm feeling this way? What are the things that I desire to accomplish through feeling this way? And how can I use this to my advantage? Understanding how to use something to your advantage, even in a negative state of being, can be extremely valuable, because when you begin to understand your own emotional state from a negative space, you begin to understand that you can move and grow in a meaningful way as it relates to what you're trying to accomplish. Not to say that you shouldn't have negative emotions, but use the negative emotions to fuel you. Literally see them as a catalyst for positive change. That catalyst for positive change could be something as simple as, I don't want to lose any more time, or I don't want to care so much about what people think about me that it holds me back, or I don't want to care so much about what other people think about me that I doubt myself. And so because that negative emotion now is a spurring point for moving forwards, you can then go, okay, thank you for those negative emotions being a catalyst to refocus me. You can use your negativity as a benefit to progress because it can be a fuel to go, I don't want to fall in and be like everybody else. Independent thinking and individualized thinking for progress requires you to be at times a little, what some people would say, crazy, what other people would call leading edge, what other people would call really, a risk taker or a calculated risk taker. You can be all of these things. And it is useful to begin to understand that a progressive mindset must include the acceptance of others' opinions, but not the agreement. You can accept that people will have opinions that are counter to your own. Matter of fact, the willingness to do that will help you not to get tied up in defending yourself. Most often, when you stop to defend yourself or your dream or your goal or your vision to someone else, you're losing energy and effort that can go into the very same vision. That does not lead you in a direction that is positive. That leads you to begin to wonder if you're strong enough to do what you set out to do in the first place. You must be willing to see progress as a continual daily and even minute by minute thing. Most 12-step programs or programs for recovery help us to understand that present moment mindedness is necessary in order to make progress with anything. When we think too big or too far ahead, we lose the power of the moment. Therefore, a question when you're trying to reset yourself should be, or can be, what can I do in this moment that will get me 1 inch, 1 step, 1 bit closer to the goal? Ultimately, when you have a mindset on the goal, even if the goal is to feel better, which ultimately the goal of everything is related to your emotional state and how you feel, thereby what you're able to do when you're feeling progressive, when you're feeling positive, when you're feeling like you want to keep going and make the world a better place. It's not to say don't have negative emotions. Negative emotions have their place. They're an invitation to change something you're focused on, your perspective, or your viewpoint on something. But as with any big issue, staying in the negativity for too long will always steal your progress. The concept of being flexible in your thought patterns and thereby the actions you take is essential to personal growth as well as professional fulfillment and interconnected and interrelational as it relates to relationships fulfillment. When one is willing to look at relationships as an opportunity for growth, development, commonality, and progress rather than the fulfillment of a goal or aspiration, that is when fulfilling relationships actually come into alignment. So often people struggle because they are looking for someone else to make them feel better about themselves. If my children love me, I'll feel better. If my spouse were to spend more time with me, I'll feel better. But that's not a progressive way of thinking. The actions of another person, while they can influence your emotional state and thereby make you feel a certain way, should not be the definition of your identity or your happiness. They cannot change your state. Instead, you have to focus upon feeling in a way that is leading you down a path that allows you to grow and develop in the direction as a person that you desire to, and not expect that validation or self-esteem, which is a topic of another audio that we're going to be doing upcoming, is to come from someone else. Instead, progressive thinking is the understanding that while people can influence our emotional state, it is for us to choose whether we accept or reject the emotion we are feeling, learn from it, grow from it, or stay stuck in it. If you choose to stay stuck, and some people do, for numerous reasons, that is to say that you are somehow leading yourself in a direction that gives you something from staying in that emotional state, whether it's a sense of value, whether it's an interesting story, whether it's validation for the original negative feeling, whatever it is, the choice to stay in a negative state of mind and away from progress has its value. However, when you choose to stay in that way, you are in fact limiting the potential of things that can come to you and that you can experience. Remember, the goal of life is a series of experiences for us to grow and develop a sense of community and contribution. Therefore, the more we progress, the easier it is to accomplish all of these things. Once again, Scott Golden, Golden Opportunities Coaching, reminding you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.